Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm sure you guys have been checking out all this stuff about AI and global risks and the future of tech, trying to piece it all together. It's a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts for sure. It's
Mm.
definitely exciting to see everything that's happening, but yeah, it's pretty tough to keep up with it all.
It is. And that's what we're here for, right? To help make sense of it all.
Yeah.
So today we are diving into the Doomsday Clock and then this whole AI friend or foe debate. And then also we have this crazy $500 billion project, which kind of makes me wonder if someone's watched a few too many sci-fi movies.
Well, hopefully we can bring some real-world analysis into it. I think you'll see that the line between sci-fi and reality is getting more and more blurry every day.
Okay, so let's start with this whole doomsday clock thing.
Hmm?
Now, this isn't just something made up in a movie or a book or anything like that. It's a real thing.
Hmm.
This was made by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, and it's basically like a warning sign about how close we are to a total global catastrophe. And what's interesting about it is that originally it was all about nuclear war. That was the big thing. But over time, it's grown to include other risks too, like climate change. And now they're even talking about artificial intelligence, which kind of changes the whole idea.
Yeah, it's not just about bombs anymore. But here's the thing, the article you shared, it actually argues that putting things like misinformation and climate change next to nuclear war, it actually weakens the message of the clock.
Correct.
Shouldn't we just focus on the thing that could wipe us all out like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see your point. Nuclear weapons are definitely in a category of their own when it comes to destructive power. But I think including these other threats, it kind of shows us how all these risks are connected. For example, if climate change makes things unstable politically, then that actually could increase the chances of nuclear war.
So it's not just about which threat is the biggest, but how they all kind of work together to create this crazy and unpredictable risk landscape.
Exactly. We can't look at these threats one by one. They're all connected. It's like this big, fragile system.
Okay, so then that brings us to AI, which seems like it could either save humanity or destroy it, depending on who you talk to. This article that you sent over makes a pretty bold statement. It says that AI is actually a bigger and more immediate threat than nuclear war, which has got to be a controversial take, right?
Yeah, it definitely got people talking. But it does show how some experts are getting worried that AI is developing so fast that we might not be able to control what happens next. And I mean, think about it. We've already seen AI used to mess with information and make those really believable deepfakes.
Mm.
The ones that make it look like anyone is saying or doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the whole thing with jobs being automated, which puts people out of work.
And those deepfakes are seriously something else. We're talking about AI that can make videos where anyone can appear to be saying or doing anything. This, reality itself is up for grabs.
Exactly. And that has huge implications for trust and accountability, even for things like democracy. Imagine a world where you can't even trust what you're seeing with your own eyes. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, that is a little unsettling. Okay, so the article also talks about this company called DeepSeek, which is doing some pretty amazing things with AI, but they're doing it in a totally different way. They're all about efficiency, doing more with less.
Hmm.
So tell me about that, because that sounds like maybe a good thing in all of this.
Yeah, DeepSeek is interesting. They're challenging the idea that bigger is always better when it comes to AI. The traditional approach has always been to collect as much data as possible and use all this processing power to train algorithms that just keep getting more complex.
Right, so it's always been about throwing more data and more power at the problem.
Right, but DeepSeek is trying something different. They're focusing on making algorithms that are way more efficient, so they can get really great results with less data and less computing power.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So it's not about building these huge energy-guzzling supercomputers anymore. It's more about being smarter with the resources we have.
Exactly. And that could mean that more people and organizations could use AI. It could make it more accessible to smaller companies, researchers, even just regular people who can't compete with these giant tech companies.
That's actually really interesting to think about. So if we can make big breakthroughs using less resources, doesn't that also make it less likely that AI will become this centralized, uncontrollable force?
It's definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
If AI isn't so dependent on these huge infrastructures and instead focuses on elegant and efficient algorithms, it could lead to a more diverse and decentralized AI landscape,
Mm.
which could be a really good thing for managing risk.
Okay, so this DeepSeek thing is giving me a little bit of optimism, I gotta say. But then the article goes on to talk about this whole thing with Nvidia and their stock price. Apparently, their stock tanked after DeepSeek made their announcement because investors realized that maybe we won't need as many of those powerful Nvidia chips if AI can do more with less.
Yeah, the Nvidia story is a great example of how fast these AI advancements can disrupt the markets and change the way we think about the economy. Nvidia has been the top dog for providing those high-powered chips that everyone uses for AI development.
And then suddenly DeepSeek comes along and it's like, hold up, maybe we don't need all those fancy chips after all.
Exactly. It's
It,
like the rug was pulled out from under a whole industry. And it raises some questions about how we value companies in a world where technology can change the game so quickly.
And then just to make things even more interesting, the article mentions that Trump's decision to undo some of Biden's AI regulations actually seemed to help Nvidia's stock recover a little. So what's going on there? Is it just a coincidence or is there something more strategic happening?
It's hard to say for sure, but it does highlight how politics, economics, and technological innovation are all tied together.
It's like some kind of high stakes poker game where everyone's trying to figure out what the other players are going to do next and who's going to come out on top.
And the stakes are incredibly high. We're not just talking about money here. We're talking about entire industries, the balance of power globally, and even what happens to humanity in the future.
Okay, things are getting pretty intense. Let's shift gears for a second and talk about this $500 billion project from a company called Stargate. This is like the opposite of DeepSeek's less is more approach.
Yeah, that's a perfect place to pick up after a quick break. The contrast between what DeepSeek is doing and what Stargate is doing really shows how much uncertainty there is about the future of AI.
Sounds like a cliffhanger to me. We'll be back in a flash to unpack all of that. Don't go anywhere. Okay, so we're back, and we got to talk about the Stargate thing, this $500 billion project. I mean, it's pretty wild, especially after talking about DeepSeek and how they're all about doing more with less. It seems like Stargate is going all in on this idea that AI needs raw power, massive computing power.
Yeah, it's a huge gamble for sure. It's like they're betting that the only way to get to real artificial general intelligence, the kind of AI we see in the movies where AI is thinking and learning like humans or even better, that it takes massive amounts of computing power.
So they think bigger is still better, even if it means building these huge data centers that use a ton of energy.
Exactly. They're assuming that the key to unlocking true AI is just processing tons and tons of data to train these super complex algorithms.
Okay, but I'm trying to picture this. What would it actually look like if Stargate is right and we end up in this world with this massive AI? How would it change things?
Well, imagine AI systems that are a part of almost everything. Managing traffic grids, making energy use more efficient, personalized healthcare and education. AI that's so powerful it can analyze all this data and make decisions way faster, more accurately than humans.
It sounds kind of amazing and kind of scary at the same time. I mean, AI could solve some of our biggest problems like curing diseases or fighting climate change, but it could also get so powerful that we lose control.
That's exactly the problem. The potential benefits are huge, but so are the risks. It's kind of like nuclear energy. It can provide clean energy, but it's also super dangerous if we don't handle it.
So it's not just about building the technology. It's about figuring out how to control it, how to make sure it's used for good, not for bad.
Exactly. And that's where the ethics come in. As AI gets more powerful, we need to figure out some serious ethical guidelines and safety measures to make sure these AI systems are still working with human values and goals.
Right. We definitely don't want AI to become this thing we can't control that ends up working against us. But let's get back to those two possible AI futures we talked about earlier. Stargate's vision is all about massive data centers and superintelligence. And DeepSeek is more about being efficient and doing more with less. So at this point, which path seems more likely?
It's hard to say. Both sides have good points. Stargate's approach is appealing because it's about raw power. That idea that if we just put enough computing power behind it, we'll eventually figure out true AI. But DeepSeek's approach is more about being elegant and sustainable, finding ways to get amazing results without using tons of resources.
So it's a kind of philosophical debate too, right? It's the bigger is better mentality versus the work smarter, not harder
Yeah,
philosophy.
exactly. And that debate isn't just happening in tech, it's happening in society in general.
Mm.
Do we keep chasing growth no matter what, even if it means using more and more resources and making problems worse? Or do we find ways to live more sustainably by using our resources more wisely and focusing on quality instead of quantity?
It feels like we're at a crossroads, and the decisions we make now are really going to determine what kind of future we end up with. But here's what I find interesting. The article mentions that even with all this talk about superintelligence, AI still can't do some things that seem pretty basic for humans.
That's a really important point. Even with all the progress AI has made, there are still certain things that even the most advanced AI systems struggle with. Things like common sense understanding humor or navigating complex social situations.
So it's like AI can be great at specific tasks, like playing chess or finding patterns in data, but it doesn't have that general intelligence, the ability to learn and adapt in new ways.
Exactly. And that makes you wonder, can we really create something like human intelligence just using computers?
Hmm.
Or is there something more to consciousness, creativity, and intuition that we can't capture with algorithms and data?
Wow, those are some deep questions. And I'm not sure we have the answers yet, but I think it's really important to keep asking those questions as we keep developing and integrating AI into our lives.
I completely agree. We need to be humble as we develop AI. We
Yeah.
don't have all the answers, and there are risks involved, but there are also rewards.
Well, I'm definitely feeling more informed, but also a lot more aware of just how much we don't know. It's clear that AI is this incredibly powerful force that's already changing the world, and its impact is only going to grow in the years to come.
And as we move forward, it's so important to have open and honest conversations about the ethics of AI. We need to talk about potential risks and rewards and what kind of future we want to create. Because ultimately, the future of AI isn't something that a few tech companies or governments get to decide. It's something we all have a part in shaping.
You know, it's wild to think that we started with the Doomsday Clock, this idea of like a countdown to global disaster, and now we're talking about AI actually shaping the future of humanity. Like it's not just some abstract thing anymore.
It really shows you how fast things are changing
Ah,
and how these issues are all connected. You can't talk about global risks without thinking about technology. And you
uh,
can't talk about AI without thinking about ethics and what it means for society.
so true. So as we wrap up here, what are the main takeaways you hope people get from our deep dive into AI and the Doomsday Clock and all this talk about the future of tech?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that the future isn't set in stone. It's not something that's just going to happen to us.
Mm,
The choices we make right now as individuals, as societies, as a global community, those choices will determine where we end up.
I like that. But it's also a little scary, right? It puts a lot of pressure on us.
It does.
Yeah.
But it also means we have the power to change things. It means we're not just sitting back and watching this technology take over. We can actually shape it and make sure it's used in a way that benefits everyone.
So it's about taking ownership of the future.
Hmm?
Okay, I like that. But how do we actually do that? It all seems so big and complicated. What can I, as one person, really do to make a difference when it comes to something like AI?
It starts with being aware. The more you know about the good things and the bad things that AI can do, the better you'll be able to make smart decisions and speak up for responsible AI development.
So reading articles, listening to this deep dive, staying informed about the latest developments, that's the first step.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not just about taking in information. It's about talking about it, asking questions, and making sure that AI is developed and used in a way that helps humanity.
Because it's easy to get swept up in all the hype or the fear, right? We need to step back and have those important conversations about ethics, about bias, about the potential consequences, both the good and the bad.
We need to move past these simple ideas about AI, like it's either going to save us all or destroy us all. The truth is somewhere in the middle, and we need to talk honestly about it if we want to navigate this in a responsible way.
So it's not just about being informed, it's about being active citizens, speaking up, and getting involved in shaping the future of this technology. That could mean supporting organizations that are working on ethical AI development or talking to our elected officials, or even just having conversations with our friends and family about all of this.
Absolutely. The more people we have involved in this conversation, the better chance we have of making sure AI is a force for good in the world.
You know, I came into this with a lot of questions and some excitement, and honestly, a bit of worry about the future. And now I still have questions, but I'm also feeling hopeful. We're at the beginning of this technological revolution that could change everything, but we get to decide what that change looks like.
And that's a powerful thing to remember. We're not just watching this happen, we're a part of it. We have the power to write the next chapter.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to think about all of this and keep exploring the world of AI and its impact on our lives. Until next time, keep diving deep.